David de Guzman inside the NBC4i Digital Center for the latest edition of NBC4 Sports Extra. We are awaiting Ryan Day to enter the podium at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Let's take a look from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. There's the podium. Ryan Day getting set to talk. We are entering the bye week for Ohio State football. The Buckeyes 3-0, coming off a pretty convincing win over Ohio, but it wasn't as convincing during the first half. So a lot that we're expecting Ryan Day to talk about in the next half hour. We're also going to get the coordinators after Ryan Day. We'll get Brian Hartline, the offensive coordinator, as well as Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator. Let's take a quick look while we have a minute. We're going to keep an eye out on the podium, but let's take a look at the latest Associated Press poll. Ohio State still at the top at 3-0. Penn State also up there. LSU, Miami, and Georgia follow. Interestingly enough, Ohio State has been number one, now entering its third week, but Penn State staying up there, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Big Ten conference plays out as these teams start getting into conference play. Ohio State and Penn State set to meet each other in November. But before that, of course, we have Ohio State taking on Washington. That will be the first road game of the season for the Buckeyes. But right now, the Buckeyes going into the bye week. Ohio State coming off of, again, 3 straight wins to open up the season. First off, taking on Texas in that highly anticipated matchup against the Longhorns, winning 14-7, and then a 70-0 victory over Grambling State. And then this past week, we saw Ohio State defeat Ohio in a contest that was a lot more close than people had expected. The first half was quite disappointing for Ohio State fans. Let's go back into the podium, and Ryan Day entering the press conference room, and we will hand it off to Ryan Day as he takes questions from the media.
Start here in the third row with Spencer Holbrook.
Brian, when you watched the film from last week, you talked about the red zone coaching scheme execution. What did you land on with that, and do you feel like they were correct with the things that could be done?
Well, there was quite a few plays in the red zone. The first time we went down there, we had a power play that I feel like, we got the right look that we were looking for. We didn't execute that very well. On the third, pass there, it was a kind of a 50-50 ball and man-to-man. I thought the protection was good, but that's playing in the red zone. And then on the last one, they did a good job sort of matching it. If you watch the play, you'll see CJ kind of league free in the flat, and if we can just keep our feet and keep our eyes up, maybe we see him there. And then as we got into the red zone a couple other times, we had a penalty. But quite honestly, there was one where we didn't motion the guy over. So to me, I thought schematically we were in decent shape. I'm critical of that. I just think we need to make sure that we're doing a better job as coaches, emphasizing the details to make sure it's executed better. Because ultimately, it's always the coach's responsibility.
Any update on Bennett Christian, who's out last week?
Yeah, he should have a full week of practice this week and be ready to have a full game week next week.
Right. A couple of times in the first 3 weeks, Tegra's come out, had the penalties on Saturday. How close is Ethan to making that a more even split or pulling ahead right there? What's the evaluation at right guard right now?
Well, I thought Tegra did some better things on Saturday, but he did have the 2 penalties. So, we want, really high level of play from everybody. And it's good to have competition and know that, there's guys that, are fighting to get on the field. Tegra's played a lot of football around here. I do think he got better in this past game, but we all know what the expectation is. So we're going to keep pushing him to get to that level.
Your defensive tackle, you guys started Taiwan Malone over Edric Houston. Just what went into that decision, and kind of where do you see those?
Yeah, as you saw, we rolled. We'll continue to roll guys. But I thought Taiwan took a step in the game. I thought he played well. He still has some things that I know Coach Johnson's working on to get him to play better. But he did some nice things in the game. I think he graded out. So that's big, as you know. We need that position, to continue to build depth and play at a high level. So, but Edric still played and Will still played. So we didn't have a ton of snaps on defense. We'll have a lot more here moving forward. So we're going to need everybody.
Coach, the schedule's a schedule. Does the bye come at a good time in your mind, and what kind of things would you do this week, and how will you handle the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know when's a good time, bad time, but today we'll practice today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Take Friday and Saturday off, and then come back in Sunday, have our practice, and do a normal game week. That's something that I think is important to make sure we still continually stay on that schedule. We're going to work hard on fundamentals, on the areas that we need to get better at. We know the next 4 games are going to be a challenge. This will be our first conference game here. This will be our first road game, and 3 of the next 4 will be conference road games. So, we have to prepare, to go on the road and play really, really good football. So we're going to look at the first 3 games, figure out the areas that we've done things well, where we need to get better at, take a look at our self-scout tendencies that, the opponents will be looking at on our end. And then I do think it's good, for these guys to get their legs back underneath them. August was a pretty physical month for us because we had to get ready in week 1. So it's really a combination of all those things.
5 touchdowns of 40 yards or more so far this season. Does it become more tempting to take those shots with the success that you've had?
I love taking shots more than anybody, but it's not always there. Sometimes they're going to say, we're going to take away the shots. So when they're there, we'll be aggressive down the field, but that's why balance is so critical. Identifying what a defense is doing and then being able to take advantage of that. And we're looking to establish that. We're looking to establish how to, win the line of scrimmage, get the ball to our players in space, stretch the field horizontally and vertically. And you can't just, break the huddle and look to launch it every play. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of good coaches across the country, and they know who some of our skill players are. So we work hard on trying to, find those situations and find creative ways to do that. I thought we did a decent job of that with one of the play designs, the one in particular to Jeremiah where we brought Carnell in the backfield, the safety spun, so the middle field safety kind of found himself towards the line of scrimmage, tried to fight his way to get back. Brandon caught his attention, and we got behind him on that play. I thought the route to Carnell, was well executed. It was a really good route. We got the look we were looking for. So you don't always get that, and I think it's important for the quarterbacks to understand when we are trying to call a shot if it's there, because there's a lot of other shots that were called that, they were in a shell and you got to check the ball down. And that's where, we'll keep calling shots if Julian or if Lincoln's in there can say, hey, if it's there, we're going to take it. If not, we're going to take the underneath stuff. And we called the shot, and it was a check down to Bo Jackson for 11 yards. I mean, that's good football right there. So we do have the speed to stretch it vertically, and when we can do that and make good decisions and stay on schedule, then we got a chance. So, but at the end of the day, the balance is what we're looking for, to identify what a defense is doing and then how we take advantage of that.
Second row middle, Maurice.
Ryan, things like managing a bye week and just keeping players fresh during the course of the season, travel, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
How much do the logistics like that affect the football these days, especially in a longer season with the 12-team playoff?
Yeah, I think it all adds up. I think everything matters. And to your point, how you handle these things. And we looked very closely at last year. Mick and I went through it yesterday, through every single day over the last, or over these 2 weeks, last year during this week, what we did on each day, how much in terms of total yards, high-speed yards, the workload, where we were coming into it at this point last year, where we were at this point, where we are at this point this year, and then individually some of the guys as well. And so, that's the science of it. And then there's also just the coach and the common sense in you, just to see your team and what you need and where you feel like you're going, what the schedule looks like moving forward, the opponents, the travel. So we take all those things into consideration. and want to make sure we have a fresh team. That's why I think when you look at, how hard we practiced in August, the Texas game early on, I think it's going to be good here to get some good work in, but also have some of these days where they can get off their feet and be ready to go for a great 4-game run here.
Got time for 2 more. We'll go to Bill Rabinowitz, front center.
Bo Jackson's obviously made a splash so far. He seems to have an explosiveness that's pretty rare. Yet after the game, you were asking about him, kind of obviously tamped it down a little bit. Is it a matter of just, okay, he's a freshman, let's just not get ahead of ourselves? Or how special do you think he is and can be?
Well, we were just talking about that as an offensive staff. It doesn't take a veteran coach to recognize talent when you see it, and Bo has talent. And we're going to keep bringing him along. It's a long season. And so, we're going to continue to give him the opportunities to prove that we can trust him with the ball in his hands. So far, he's done that. You can see his vision. You can see, his ability to catch the ball. He's got a lot of different skills. We're going to keep bringing him along. And the more he can take, the more we're going to give him. But I also think there's, just like any other position, there's a way you bring guys along. And the number one thing is ball security, taking care of that football. And then there's pass protection, and then there's all those things. And he's checked these boxes. I mean, he's doing a nice job. So we're going to need everybody in that room. I think they're all a little bit different, which is unique. So it's our job to put them in a situation to be successful. But he's going to get plenty of carries this year.
Last question, front row, Joey Fox.
Ryan, when you have taken those downfield shots with Julian, he hasn't missed in any of those opportunities on the throws.
Jeez.
What has he done well to be accurate in those situations?
Well, first off, you have to trust your footwork, and I think that is important when you're dealing with certain throws. You have to understand that there's a footwork that comes with it, especially when we're launching the ball so far down the field. There's a timing, and when you look at guys like Carnell and Jeremiah and some of the receivers we have, they can cover such so much distance in a short period of time. I think he does a nice job with the trajectory of the ball, because the more trajectory you have on a ball, the more margin of error you have. So actually the first go ball to Jeremiah, we usually like to throw that about 42 yards, what we call in a red line, which is an imaginary line, 4 yards from the boundary. And, on the red line, when you throw that ball, it's the wide receiver's job to make sure he's shielding off the defender and catching over his outside shoulder. When you throw the ball with a lot of air, you have the ability to maybe come back for it and things like that. So I think that was well done. On the 2 post throws, I thought both guys set on those angles, and he found the angle. But I think when you have such fast guys, you have to be able to get that ball out there, and you got to put a lot of height on it and let them adjust to it. And even the one to Jeremiah, when you put that ball in the air for him and he jumps up and he's so big and strong, he can kind of shield the defender with his body, which is what he did. I feel like the one to Carnell, he kind of dropped that one right in the basket. But a big part of it is your footwork, because when you're throwing it that far, think about when you're throwing a ball from 1 hash mark all the way to the red line. Let's just say it's 42 yards. Well, you also have to take the distance of where it is on the field. So you may be throwing a 60-yard ball with a lot of air, and that takes everything you have. So you have to have your feet in the ground to throw those balls. And a big part of that is how your footwork is, where you're hitching, how you're hitching, and that certainly helps. And then the last part is you never want to be late. If you're late throwing the ball down the field, it's going to be different. The other thing I would say too is when you're throwing a deep ball into the boundary as opposed to the field, they're 2 different throws, because the one to the boundary is a lot closer than the one to the field. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. We spend a lot of time talking about them, working them, and making sure that we're on point, because we always say around here, when you take your shots, we got to hit them, and that separates the success of an offense. We try to be north of 50-50 on deep balls, but when we take them, we got to hit them.
All right, Coach, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
That was Ryan Day, his weekly press conference, relatively shorter than his previous press conferences, although it is a bye week, so just about 12, 13 minutes with the media. Touched upon a lot of interesting points. one of them managing a bye week and how the logistics affect football. And then, of course, the road game coming up at Washington. Ryan Day saying it all adds up. Also had plenty to say about Bo Jackson, the freshman running back who has really caught a lot of eyes so far in the first 3 games of the season. He said it doesn't take a veteran coach to recognize talent, and Bo Jackson does have some talent. He's going to get a lot of opportunities. He sees his vision. He has a lot of different skills. All right, we're going to go back now to the podium. Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator, is now up at the podium. Let's listen in.
You know what? That's a great question. We got some stuff in last week. I would say that I was glad to be able to get in and kind of get out there and practice. But our guys are doing an unbelievable job, I think, with the installations and the learning and the different pieces and putting that all together. I just can't give enough credit to the way that they've gone after this and studied and learned and practiced and improved. What's really been great is, we'll put things in, and sometimes you put things in and you're taking a look at it and you're like, I'm not really sure if I like that or not. And then they're kind of like, hey, let's give it one more look. And they've fixed it, or they've made you feel more comfortable about those calls, which I love, like that ownership that they've been able to do with some of the stuff that we've done. So it's been pretty good. Pretty good. Yep.
We'll go here. Kellyanne Stitz, WSYX.
Just heading into the bye week, looking at the last 3 weeks, the defense has played very well, but what's the focus this week as you guys get ready to go on the road in Washington?
Yeah, so exactly right. We got to go on the road now. We have a whole operation there that'll be a little bit different than what we're used to communication-wise, and then certainly, Washington being in their home stadium and having that advantage for their offense, so that gives us some different challenges, and certainly just, this teams get better each week, and Washington will be, the next best team that we face in their offense, and Coach Fish does a great job. Jed does a great job with that unit, their quarterback, and their skill players, and the running game, and all the things that they present from a problem standpoint. I think they're tops, in college football and a lot of offensive stats. So he's a great coach. They got really good players. This is a huge challenge for us, the travel and kind of the change of schedule. We finally kind of getting on like a normal schedule here in season. It's been nice to be home. I really enjoy our crowd. I enjoy our fans a lot. That's a big advantage for us. And so if they can travel and get out there as much as possible, that'd be awesome. I'm all for it.
Tony Kerben, Buckeye Hot.
Matt, when you come back to Caleb and all of these different things, he needs a running mate that can handle all of the stuff he's not doing. What makes Jalen McClain that kind of guy, and what kind of potential do you see for him?
Yeah, Jalen, I think, really has, followed along with Caleb in the communication. That's the biggest piece, with the safeties. They got to talk back and forth. And depending on if you're playing, middle field closed coverage or split safety coverage, there's a lot of communication that goes outside from that position and then towards the front. And I think that, just learning how Caleb approaches the game, Jalen's really done a good job of kind of following that model. And, it's always good when you have a great player in front of you and you do what he does. That usually helps you out a lot. But I think those two and their chemistry together, along with the linebackers, those are our main communicators. And Lorenzo's in there too a little bit, because he's kind of moving positions and tied into the middle of the defense more with the communication. I think those guys, those three in the back end, along with like Sonny and Arvell and Peyton, tying that to the front, it's been really good. I think that you see it in the meetings a lot. We talk in the meetings and we have that conversation in the meeting room, then you feel confident when you go out on the field, you'll be able to get that communication done in the moment.
Matt Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Matt, the NFL, I don't think you have 70-0 games very often, or games where you can get as many guys in. How much of an adjustment has it been for you to try and coach off of games like that, where guys are getting away with maybe some things they won't down the road, as opposed to the NFL, where every week is a major challenge?
Yeah, I think that's a great point of we've got to just be consistent with what we're coaching and what we're asking the guys to do, and the coaches have done a great job of that, and the players want that too. It's good to be able to have those reps in a game where you can kind of really get that fundamental technique down and that teaching of the communication down where it's happening at game speed. Practice is great, but there's nothing like being able to do it, live in that environment under that sort of, just stress of a game. So being able to evaluate guys in those moments has been really important. I think that's, it's actually critical for us going forward as we are trying to identify players in different roles and then guys that can come in certain situations and earn different spots in different units that we have. So I've actually those have been really important snaps, I think, in the games that we've had where those guys have gotten in.
Over here to the right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Having a guy like Kerry McDonald and what he's able to do that big, playing with that kind of motor, what does that do to free you up in the back end and what you want to do there?
Yeah, you love to be strong in the middle of the defense, and he is strong in the middle of the defense. He's right there, right in front of the center, right in front of the quarterback, and I think offensively, you're trying to figure out, okay, how do we get around this? That's the biggest thing. So that's a key piece for us. He's done a great job, I think, of really improving and showing just how big he can play inside. And sometimes what that does to a defense is it actually allows you to push your defense out a little bit more. Kind of went through that in some of the other nose guards that I've had, or interior guys that I've had, where guys maybe can widen out some alignments. They can play a little bit off and deeper because it's going to take the play a little bit longer to get to them when you have that ability inside. So I think he's done a great job, but I think those other guys really, Will Smith showed up. He had a couple really good plays, and Edric does a good job inside, and Taiwan. Those guys have all really kind of every single week gotten a little bit better with that technique. I think, K-Max he's just ahead of those guys. He's done a really good job with it.
Matt, after 3 games back in the college game after 25 years or whatever, how has the roster size benefited someone like you who doesn't really subscribe to one defensive philosophy? How valuable has it been to just be able to tinker with any variety of formations or players that you want?
Yeah, it's been fun having that many pieces, that much depth, and we have young guys in those positions too, but being able to put out different sub packages or different base packages and put some of those guys in those positions has been really good. And I think those guys earned an opportunity to go play. So to be able to have that much opportunity to do that with those guys has been really good. And sometimes you got to be careful because I'm looking at the board maybe on a Tuesday and I'm like, oh, we can run all these packages. And you're like, all right, we can't get all that practice because you're trying to get everybody a job and a role. And I think the coaches have done a good job of putting different guys in those positions to be able to get them all out in the field. And I think all of these snaps that we're getting now are going to pay off, in the long run. We don't know what it's going to look like a month from now, but certainly getting as much game rep as we can now helps everybody, I think.
Bill Rabinowitz.
I don't think we've talked to you since the beginning of the season. What went into the decision for you to stay on the field as opposed to the booth?
Yeah, I've always been on the field calling the defense. And all the coordinating years that I had, I feel that being down on the field is good from a communication standpoint, talking to the signal callers. Guys do both. Some guys are upstairs and it's much calmer. It's a different atmosphere. You can see the game. You got to have great eyes upstairs, when you're downstairs. But what's interesting for me in the college game is the video. That's really crazy. We have the iPad, the tablets you can see the whole play. It's like the entire video. I actually think this one got me the other day. I was swiping through and I'm like, it was probably a bad play or whatever. I'm trying to correct, and all of a sudden the TV copy, and there's my daughter on this. I was like, what the heck is going on? I was like, trying to swipe through that. I was like, all right, wait, next. But that's really been cool, to be able to have the full play and to be able to adjust because you can really get all of that. So in the series, it's real important to have the eyes upstairs because you're kind of trying to correct as you go. But when you get to the sideline, to be able to see that full video really makes it great down on the field. And then I can talk to the players and I can see how they're feeling. And when we make adjustments, maybe I'm looking at a guy and I'm like, hey, are you okay if we go to this call or maybe this disguise or this look? And if you're getting the double blink, you're going, all right, never mind, move to something else. So you can just kind of get a better feel for how they're feeling about maybe some of the stuff that you're trying to do during the game.
I think there's a lot of talk over the offseason about depth on the defensive line, and you mixed up a lot of fronts. What about that group lends itself to being able to be so creative with them up front?
Yeah, one of the big things during the spring that was really good was just I was able to observe and watch the different skill sets that everyone had, and with the defensive line, Coach Johnson does an unbelievable job of coaching these guys. They all have maybe a little bit of different things they do well and things that maybe you don't want them, positions you don't want them in. And by being able to use multiple fronts and different looks, I'm trying to just get them in the best possible position to do what it is they do well so they can go play fast and aggressive. So using that variety, I think, hopefully has helped them as they're building their fundamentals and their techniques to be in positions that are advantageous for them. And like I said, Coach Shea does a great job of we've put a couple different looks out there front-wise, and he's just been able to get them all lined up and get them ready to go, and the communication and the techniques and all that stuff. So he's done a great job with those guys.
Bill Landis.
Matt, when you have a guy like Arvell, who I don't know if he is your best pass rusher, he's certainly one of them, but he's also really good at being a spy. How do you balance putting him in both of those roles? And is there anything that's advantageous when like the guy who can pass rush is also your best buy in terms of being unpredictable to the offense.
Yeah, Arvell has a skill set that he can do a lot of things really well. Early in the game, he had a nice pass breakup too. He can run, and he's really long, so he can cover those guys. And just trying to pull a little bit of uncertainty in the offense to figure out what exactly is he doing on this play. I think that's the biggest thing that you can do with guys that have that multiple ability, on the field. Pass rush, he's certainly dynamic if you can get him around the quarterback for sure, and he's big and long and can run and chase these guys down. So just continually asking him to do different things. He's done a great job of just understanding that and being put in positions. There's a lot of calls on the field actually where he might be changing some of the assignments based on different looks that we have, and his ability to do that has really been outstanding. So you like those pieces on the field, sure.
Just 3 games in, it seems like you found a defined role for Devin as a true freshman in that dime package role. Can you just evaluate what you've seen from him through those 3 games in that role, and do you feel like there's maybe room for him to be able to do more for you as the season progresses?
Yeah, I think he's done a really good job of going out there and kind of handling. That's a pressure situation, 3rd down, some of those packages he's gone in, 2-minute, whatever it is. You have to perform. Those are kind of got-to-have-it moments, and I think he's done a good job. There's certainly room for improvement, and he's a young player right now. He's still trying to get all of the different techniques and the alignments, but the communication's been great. Assignments have been really good. He's certainly very gifted athletically and can handle that. So hopefully these snaps that we're building on now can help, him improve as we go forward. And certainly also we're trying to build our depth, to make sure that we have that handled as we go forward, and putting him in that position, in that role, allows us to kind of build on that every single week. So there's things that we're doing in practice that maybe don't show up in the game, where he's getting the game reps to be able to get a good evaluation, maybe just kind of get him that exposure. But during practice, we have him in some different positions too, where we feel like we're building confidence to be able to do that with him going forward.
Deep right, Dan Holt, 11 Warriors. Washington's quarterback's a dynamic runner. What kind of challenge is that, and how much did it help to go against a guy like Parker Navarro this past week?
Yeah, it certainly helped to be able to see that style of play. But getting to Washington, he's very much a little bit almost like Kyler Murray. Like that first step quickness that he has and his ability to get to top speed it's explosive. It's fast. He's quick. He gets out of the pocket, and he's got a really strong live arm. This thing can go downfield. They've got good players to get the ball to. So that's going to be a huge challenge for us. Even when you think, you watch the tape, you think you've kind of got him bottled up, he can get out. And that reminds me a lot, like I said, of Kyler Murray, who just it's so fast to that first step speed. Like you can go from, get to your top speed in 1 step. That makes it very difficult for defensive players, especially guys in the front. A lot of times they're bigger, longer, slower. You're trying to rush, or you're trying to play the run game, because he can obviously run with the ball too a certain way. You think you have him leveraged, and then all of a sudden he sidesteps it, and then he's out the gate. So getting a look at that last week was good for us. Live in game, those reps will be valuable, and then it's got to really be next level as we go forward to Washington.
Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Coach, coaching pro guys for so long, coaching college guys. I don't know what your expectations were for these guys. A lot of new starters, but sort of what level of professionalism do they bring to the job every day, and is it more or less than what you thought it might be?
Yeah, I think that's a really good just kind of observation, and I'll second all of that. These guys have been unbelievable to go into the meeting room, and I think I've said this before, but it's such a joy to kind of be around these guys. There is that professionalism that you walk into the meeting room, they're very serious, they take notes, they want to learn what the game plan is, they really want to learn about the the opponent. But then there's just that also joy of they are young kids, they have that youthful energy about them. They love the game for the game. It's just all of that stuff being around younger players that just, come out of them. They have fun, they're out there celebrating the, 6-7. I don't even know what that is, but my kids know what it is, and they get excited about it. So, I love to see that energy and that excitement that they have around each other, and they're young, they're great young men, but in that meeting room and on that practice field, they're as serious as they can be, trying to just be the best players they can be. So it's a great combination, honestly, to be around. It's a lot of fun.
And final question, Doug Maurice.
So Matt, 3 games in, it seems to be going pretty well so far. In the end, a new defensive coordinator coming into a new program, that is a big adjustment for players to get used to you and you to get used to them, or you guys all know ball, no big deal, it's fine.
Yeah, give credit to the players. I think they've done a good job of just trying to learn. And again, I would say we've carried some things over. It wasn't totally different, maybe just taught a little bit differently, maybe just more conceptual from that standpoint. There's a lot of carryover in the coverages and some of the techniques and some fronts, but not fronts that maybe weren't in the packages. We're just kind of utilizing guys in different ways. So I think the guys have just done an unbelievable job of just, being open-minded to trying to learn maybe a little bit different and put the packages together. It's been a lot of fun. Like I said, my whole goal is to, teach and mentor and coach young men and help develop young men and, hopefully have a positive impact in their lives going forward. And that's really what I'm trying to do. And that's what's been the most fun.
All right, Coach, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right. That was defensive coordinator Matt Patricia at the podium. A lot of interesting things that he said in the course of the last about 10 or 15 minutes. Talked a lot about Caden McDonald, big guy that plays inside, and opposing offenses having to figure out how you get around him offensively. Really interesting that Matt Patricia was probably one of the biggest question marks going into the offseason, taking over the Ohio State defense that, at the end of the year was the top defense in the country, and has only allowed 16 points, 7 against Texas and then 9 against the Bobcats. So really interesting to see how the Ohio State defense has kind of, kept being strong, especially during that game against Ohio. Only allowed one big play, that big touchdown at the beginning of the second half that Parker Navarro threw, but really was able to shut down the Bobcats largely. All right, Brian Hartline now coming to the podium. He's going to discuss the Ohio State offense. Let's listen in.
Ryan was talking about the ability to use all the tight ends, kind of keeps the defense on their toes, not really being able to identify what you guys are trying to do. As the guy with the play sheet, how do you see that from the block?
The tight end use? Is that what you're asking?
What's that?
What are you asking?
As the guy with the play sheet, Ryan was talking last week about how the tight ends allow you guys to be multiple in everything you do, kind of keep defense on their toes, not really understand what's going on. And how have you seen that evolve through 3 games? And do you see that as like an advantage for you guys?
Well, I think anytime you can be multiple in personnel, you'll probably ask or demand different reactions by a defense. So, I think us having so many different guys available offensively, we want to try to use as many guys as possible. I think the tight end room has done a really good job. They're asked to do a lot of things, right? They have to run routes like a wide out. They got to block like an offensive tackle. They have to get all the run IDs, but then also be elite in the pass game if they want to play. So their job description is really vast, and they'd spend a lot of time, trying to do everything correct and everything at a high level. So I think rightfully so, those guys are mismatches potentially, right? What kind of opportunity do you have to run a route versus a linebacker? Or are you just blocking a safety, right? So putting those guys in the right position can be a bonus for the offense, but you got to use them properly. But they've done a really good job. They do a great job at practice. So ultimately, for them to be worked in the game, I think is really really important. Again, they can do everything. You got to make sure you're targeted on what they do, and then it makes it hard for the defense to play them just one type of way. They got to account for them in all facets.
Andy Andrews, 11 Warriors.
I know there's only one ball, and he's done some good things blocking, but what's your evaluation of how Brandon's done these first few weeks, and is there going to be an opportunity to maybe get him more targets in the future?
Yeah, I think Brandon's done a great job. I think he always is a guy that whatever his job description is done at a high level. So, again, as we're being multiple, as we talk about the tight ends, as we talk about Brandon, he's able to do a lot of different things. So his role is going to change constantly based on defenses and what they do, but anything we ask him to do, he does at a high level. So I'm not really concerned about the job description as it is just, where does he fit this week and in weeks moving forward, and then how defenses want to account for him. So the tool sets are vast. How we want to use them is probably what's going to change the most, week to week. But it's done a great job.
Far left, Steve Hellwagon, 24/7 Sports.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, the red zone was a little bit of a problem this past week. In there 3 times and got 2 field goals the first 3 quarters, whatever it was. But Coach Day was up here, said it was maybe a different thing on each set of downs and each play that kind of cropped up. And some of it was Ohio making great plays in coverage. Just from your standpoint, what are the things you guys are going to really drill down on to put the ball in the end zone in the games going forward?
Yeah, I think combination of everything like Coach already hit on, right? So Execution's part of it, but putting guys in right positions to make plays is another part of it. So we all own it as a group. We definitely want to score every time we get down there, that's for sure. But there was learning opportunities too. I think there was different opportunities for the quarterback to see things a little different things for our us to make plays on the perimeter, but also even in protection. So everyone had their own little growth opportunity, and myself too, putting those guys in the right spots to make sure that we can execute at a high level. Obviously, every time we be in the red zone, the expectation is to score touchdowns, both from the outside world and in this building. So anytime we're not doing that, we're always looking for ways to enhance and do it at a more consistent level. So that was probably one of our first opportunities where it didn't go the way we wanted it to go, and that's a great chance to get a little better.
Ryan, 3 games in the season, how's the new play calling setup going? What do you like? How are things settling in? Just in general, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it's been awesome. I think I've really enjoyed it. I think I love the connection with the guys. I love the interaction I have across the board with the personnel. I think that every chance you're in that situation or you're at an opportunity to call a game, there's an opportunity to learn and grow and frankly, I do it daily with Coach Day, but to be out there doing it live, there's nothing like those kind of reps. So I think that, again, going into the bye, I think there's been an opportunity to grow offensively, which really checks the box. If you were to go back a month and be like, what's your initial goal for the first 3 weeks? One is going to find a way to win week 1. The next couple goals would be like, we're seeing growth, we're seeing development both as players and as coaches to that first bye. All right, let's do a good job of being organized through that bye and then come out of the bye ready to haul until that next kind of break we had to have. You kind of broke it up in sections. That's what I would have said a month ago. So I think looking back, we've done a lot of those things, but still trying to press to be better, more consistent, and continue to put the guys in the right spots.
Yeah, Brian, 3 games in too with Julian saying, what do you feel like you can run pretty much anything you want to run now? I mean, what is the sense of your trust in him, your confidence in running offense?
I'd say that he's done a great job. I think that, you don't ever make assumptions. I don't think you're ever in a spot where like, okay, we can just do whatever we want now. We're very targeted with everything we do. We'll never make that assumption. I think he's grown and done a really good job. Definitely had some learning opportunities every week. So his ability to take that information and apply it will ultimately continue that growth. I would say that I'm really proud of him. I think he's doing a great job. But we're never going to take that assumption that we can just do whatever we want and put him in every situation we want. So always going to be targeted, always going to continue to make sure the game plan is very clear and concise, and maybe not easy, but maybe simple, which is good. So we can play at a very, very high level. But yeah, I think we're taking the right steps. But again, we had a long road ahead. Again, we take retrospect to maybe where we were week 3 last year compared to where we finished. We just want to continue to stay on pace, continue to grow, and I think Julian's doing a great job individually.
I mean, a lot of people thought when you got this job, you'd just be bombs away all day. You know what I mean? And I try to caution him. I've heard you talk and stuff. You really understand the importance of the run game, right? I mean, can you explain that to people of what it means to get 3 running backs going?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys on the field at one time. It's not just quarterback and wideouts. So, yeah, I mean, I think talk for a while on this. Well, I would say that, we talked about Julian. Julian's a first-year starter, right? So his best friend should be a good run game, right? We have a great O-line that's doing a really good job of progressing in their own path. So I think, again, we got to where we were last year because of the run game. It wasn't just because of the pass game. A great pass game is complemented by a great run game and vice versa. So to have play-action passes, it's not great if you don't have a great run game and you don't have great tight ends that can do all those kind of things. So being very balanced makes it a little more difficult, I think, for the defenses to maybe pin you down a certain way. But I've always believed, I'm a big fan of play-action pass. I love the art of selling something you're not doing. And so, yeah, I mean, that assumption would be a little too surface for me for the run game, but I appreciate you asking.
Brian, you said repeatedly there that you didn't make assumptions about what Julian could do, but Coach Day said after the Texas game maybe you guys could have put more on his plate. So at least in game plan or expectation-wise, how much has he exceeded what you guys thought going into the year?
Yeah, I would say as a coach, you always want to be in that position where we probably could have done a little more instead of being like, oh, man, we did too much, right? So I think we've done a good job with that. Coach Fessler's done a really good job with that, Coach Day, and making sure we're really clean on what we put on his plate. He is continuing to do a good job with accepting more week to week, and maybe some checks last week. And, so we're going to keep progressing that. Without being too much, right? It's all based on what fits week to week. It's not about always, hey, this is what we're going to do this week. Well, we're going to do what fits right for the team, for the personnel, for Jules, for the running backs, for the wideouts, and we try to make sure we focus it that way, not make assumptions. And but again, I think that Julian, again, week in and week out, is taking strides. I think he has I'm sure he has a lofty goal. I've never asked him, frankly, but I'm sure he's not where he wants to be. And, again, week 3 into at least 12, hopefully, and hopefully more from there. There's a lot of football to be played.
Far left, play Hall.
Another play calling question. Do you feel some freedom to do what you want to do or what's in your, this is, I believe in this, or are you always beholden to the boss?
No, I think it's definitely it's not one way or the other. But I think any person under a great head coach would feel the exact same way. I mean, I think that if you weren't that way, that'd be kind of reckless for anybody as a play caller, I think. So, but no, I mean, I stand by what I believe in. I also, if we bring things up and we don't like it, I'll say I don't like it. I mean, it's been very transparent. And then when I'm wrong, and it is what it is, or whatever. So, I think the relationship and the thickness of skin is good, and so we just kind of keep growing. And again, ultimately, we all have the same thing at heart. We want to make sure we're putting our players in the best position to be successful. And if not, then it's on us, right? If they are and we're not executing, then that's a different conversation. But I think again, I don't like to think I'm gun shy, and Coach Day is definitely not gun shy. So, but no, I think it's a good balance.
For the most part, or
I mean, coach has been great. I mean, I think that he lets me kind of do my thing, and then if there's something he wants to get done, he echoes it, and we keep pushing. So, but I've been I'm trying to not be happy. Hold on a second, because I know he's not happy. So, I am, I guess, okay with the way it's been so far. I always want to be better. I'm never going to be satisfied, but. I think that there's been a lot of growth, and I'm learning a lot on the way, and coaches keep me posted.
It's a great feeling that the training wheels are off.
I think I always have training wheels on. Always. They're always there. But I don't know. I think we're overlooking into this too much. I think we're all doing a good job staff-wise, and I mean, I don't know what else to lay on that.
Brian,
Joey.
not a lot of guys have on this team. I don't think anybody have played at Washington. You
Yep.
played in the 07 game, known for being a loud place. Do you have any memories of?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had the same thing. I remember it not being as loud. I remember catching a fish in the market, right before the I think the Friday before the game, which was pretty cool. Todd Beckman threw me a touchdown, which was awesome. I landed on somebody's foot, hurt the heck out of my back. But no, it's known to being loud, right? So if you give them the opportunity to be loud, it will be loud. And but we did a good job that game, and we didn't really have much exposure to that. We will operate like we won't be able to hear ourselves, that's for sure, because that place is known for it, and it's a great environment. I mean, I think that's one of the best environments on the West Coast that you can find. So, first time we were there was in 08, I believe, or 07, and looking forward to getting back.
Got time for just a couple more. Tony Girdman, Buckeye Hall.
Brian, when you, in your coaching career, when you finally got to the point where you're like, I do kind of want to be a coordinator, I do want to call plays, were you in your mind were thinking, boy, I hope I've got 5 tight ends and I can run a bunch of 12, 13, and 14 personnel when the time comes?
Probably wasn't on my checklist. I was probably trying to see how many wideouts I could store on the field at one time. But there's growth. Right? I got out of my own little world. But yeah, we have a heck of a room. We've kind of talked about that, and ultimately, it's got to progress. Where do we go from there? We're not going to be in a world where we live in 13 and 14 personnel, but when it's an advantage, we're going to use that advantage. And we feel really confident about our groups, both up front and the tight end group. So, but yeah, we just I think the more you can do, the more you got to plan on, right? The more you do week to week, the more they have to prep for it. And as long as there's no fall off from group to group, advantage the Buckeyes.
As a player, when did you, as the wide receiver you were, when did you fully appreciate the tight end position?
I've always appreciated it. I always understood their job description versus my job description. I never thought I lived in a box per se, but I would say that as a coach, you see it even more because you don't realize as a player what you don't know, right? So, but I would say that the coaching they're getting, the execution that we have with them, has been very encouraging. Again, so we're going to keep building out our personnel packages to do vastly different things, so you don't get a beat on things. But it ultimately comes down to the players that make the things go. So they've done a really good job of that. I've always had great appreciation for them. They've kind of been like wideouts, but they have to block the ends. We don't have to do. So a lot of respect for their job description.
And final question, Stephen Means.
Just kind of following up on the Brandon Ennis thing. The slot position has just been such a high usage spot here for so long, and so for Brandon to not necessarily have a catch, a position that's high usage. Did you still think he had a good football game, even if the ball wasn't necessarily in his hands?
Oh yeah, it's kind of like whether you still play a really good basketball game, even though maybe you didn't score. It's like those elite basketball players talk about, to take a shot. It takes 1 or 2 seconds. So to let 10 seconds, 5 missed shots impact 30 minutes of play, it's just a small-minded approach. So even though there may not be a catch, the impact of getting the right blocks and being in the right spots and everything that we do ultimately dictates whether you have a good game or not. And when you have 110 yards and on 5 catches, but you had a lot of MAs, you did not have a good football game, even though everybody wants to praise you. But that's not how this is built. And ultimately, we are judged by, at least individually, right? We are judged on doing things others don't do, right? If you're able to do it and so is he, then you're replaceable, right? So ultimately, you're trying to do things that the other guys can't do or won't do or haven't done. And that's what sports is all about. The individual being different than his peer, being elevated than his peer, and then the collective as a group being a different than the other team and our team versus their team. So Brandon, to answer your question long-windedly, Brandon's done a great job in his job description, regardless of where the targets have been, and that's got to continue. And obviously, that's going to change over time. It's the Ohio State's offense. It's always going to be the Ohio State's offense. So the slot is always a big part of what we do.
Happy with where your wide receiver depth is outside of those 3 right now?
Yeah, I think really happy. I think, frankly, in my mind, got to continue to look for other opportunities to get more kind of rolling in there. I think I'd like to have more guys in there playing on Saturdays. And then that has to be worked on through the week. When you get to game time, especially being up top, it's a little more difficult. I felt that a little bit of getting guys going because I'm upstairs a little bit. Got to get that fixed. I will get that fixed. But that's probably one thing of area of growth. The guys are doing a good job. We're going to get more of those guys in the game.
Coach, thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. That was Brian Hartline, offensive coordinator for the Buckeyes, and that will wrap up the trio of press conferences that we've been able to see this afternoon from the Woody Hayes Athletic Facility. Let's just kind of just a couple quick points from what Brian Hartline was able to say. Says that in terms of him and his growth as the offensive coordinator, he's shown a lot of growth, but he always has training wheels. About the red zone struggles against Ohio, he says that execution is part of it. It's also about getting guys in the right positions, and there's always going to be learning opportunities. But, of course, the expectation when it comes down to the red zone is to score touchdowns. He says the bye week is a great opportunity to grow offensively. As far as Julian Sayin, after 3 games as a starting quarterback, he's been accepting more week to week and has been taking strides. On Brandon Ennis, his role is going to change constantly depending on the opponent, but he does whatever it takes to do it at a high level, and it always just depends on where does he fit week to week. So those were some of the big talking points from what Brian Hartline had to say. Ohio State 3-0 entering the bye week after wins over Texas, Grambling State, and Ohio. Now it's on to Washington. First away game, that's on September 27th at 3:30. But right now the focus is on themselves as Ohio State is now on the bye week. That'll do it for this edition of NBC4 Sports Extra. It's been your pleasure to host. I'm David de Guzman. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. For more NBC4, download the NBC4 streaming app. You'll get free 24/7 local programming streamed straight to your living room. Just search NBC4 Columbus on your Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, or Samsung device.